Hello everyone and welcome to my second tutorial of managerial accounting. This tutorial I want to talk about and introduce some important vocabulary that's so important to understand the different costs that are being introduced to you in the calculations. Okay, so there are a few abbreviations that we need to learn. The first one is raw material. This variable represents the dollar amount I have spent to acquire or to buy the items, the products, the components that is going to be part of my final product. So imagine that you are making cupcakes. The flour, the sugar, the milk, the butter, the eggs are all components that are going to make my final good, which is the cupcake. So the dollar amount I'm spending on these items is included under raw material. And I forgot to include also direct material. So the raw material is the amount of money I'm spending to buy those and putting it in the warehouse. The direct material is the amount of money I have spent for the raw material that it actually formed the product. So for example, I might buy 100 pounds of flour and put in the inventory. It's going to go under raw material expenses. But direct material is, for example, I'm going to use only 2 pounds today to manufacture 100 cupcakes. So the 2 pounds are the direct material. The 100 pounds that are sitting in the inventory, as an inventory in the warehouse, is the raw material. The second one is work in progress. Imagine that as a process. It is the process of transforming the raw material into the final good. So it's not a finished goods yet, but it's not a raw material anymore. And also include some labor expenses and other kind of expenses. So it's the dollar amount of all the expenses that I needed to finish manufacturing those products. Finished goods is the dollar amount that I need, the dollar amount allocated for the goods that were produced. Direct material. Okay, so in any company, the labor, oh, I said direct material, I'm sorry, I mean direct labor. So in any company, the labor can be divided into two main categories, direct labor and indirect labor. The direct labor are the people who are The direct labor is the dollar amount for the people who are manufacturing my product, while the indirect labor is everything else, like for example, the security guard. The security guard is not actually manufacturing the cupcakes, for example, if you go back to our example. But it's also a cost, and it's also a labor, but it's indirect. I am only concerned about how much I'm spending to the labor that needed to manufacture my product. Overhead costs. The same concept, we have two different costs. Costs that I can allocate easily to the product. For example, how much flour I need to manufacture 100 cupcakes, how much butter I need. Those are not overhead costs because I can allocate it so easily. I can say, okay, every cupcake has 5 ounces, for example. That's too much, but for example, or 1 ounce of sugar. The other kind of cost I, is unrelated to the manufacturing process. For example, rent. Rent, insurance, utility bills, security, stuff like that. I cannot say that much rent goes to this cupcake and that much insurance goes to this product. That is so hard to allocate it. So they call it overhead costs. You can imagine it like indirect cost. Convergence cost is just a fancy word for combining both direct labor and overhead cost. Cost of goods manufactured. This one is easy. Is the dollar amount for the total expenses that I needed to manufacture those products. Is going to include the raw material, is going to include the direct labor, and it's going to include the overhead I needed for manufacturing those products, specific products. Cost of goods sold. Okay, so after the product is being manufactured, it's going to sit in my warehouse, wait until I sell it. When I sell it, I want to calculate how much that cost me. So we call it cost of goods sold. So I can calculate the profit and other stuff. Okay, so we have 8 or 9 um, abbreviations. Raw material, which is the dollar amount I spent to buy the materials that are going to go directly or form directly my product, and I'm going to put them in the warehouse. The direct labor, the second one, oh sorry, work in progress is the stage, the dollar amount for all the money I need to spend for this stage to convert the raw material into finished goods. Finished goods is how much I needed to spend for those finished goods. Direct labor is also the amount of dollar for that I had spent to manufacture the products. Overhead costs, the costs that I cannot relate directly to the products like rent, insurance. Conversion costs, meaning addition of direct labor and overhead costs. Cost of goods manufactured is, it's very obvious, it's the dollar amount for how much money I needed to manufacture those products. Cost of goods sold is how much is the cost for the products I have sold. Thank you and see you in another tutorial.